Hello and welcome to Unpack the Deck. Our first Unpack the Deck session is about the Azure Stack HCI Security book. And I'm not alone. I have two security experts with me, my most valuable professional, Manfred Helber, and my colleague, Flo Fox. Hello, guys. How are you doing today?
Hey, thank you. Fine and great to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to our topic because security is one of the top topics from last year. When we look besides the Copilot announcements, security was always in the newspapers, in the IT news, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, the Unpack the Deck is a format where we talk about PowerPoints, PDFs, maybe white papers, how to explain what's in it for you. And maybe you want to present it to your partners, customers, whoever. So we help you a little bit to understand the content of this deck. And today we talk about the security book of Azure Stack HCI. I will explain you where to get this information from. If you want to have the security book, it's easy to download it. So you can go on LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn you will find the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk channel. So it's accessible for everyone, but you can follow us. So please follow us to be up to date with Azure hybrid topics, especially Azure Stack HCI. And if you scroll down a little bit, you see announcements of today's session, and you will find white papers, you will find announcements of new technologies, and so on and so on. The Azure Stack HCI show is something I'm doing with Manfred every second week. We talk about technologies, what Azure Stack HCI is, how it works, and so on. We talk about Azure Arc, for example. And yeah, you will find the Azure Stack HCI security book. And now you can go on full screen, and then on the top, you can see that there's a download button. And if you use this download button, you can download the document and watch it. So I will post a little bit later when Manfred is showing some slides, for example, the link to the comments, and then you have the direct access to this post, or you go to the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk on LinkedIn, and then you can search for it by yourself. There are two more platforms I would like to highlight. So one is the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk on YouTube. Here you can find a lot of content about Azure Stack HCI and related things, like the sessions we are doing today. And this Thursday, we have an Unpack the Deck session about Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI. It's a level 300, so a more technical deck, going through all the details of AVD, and you can see a lot of additional content. And there is one YouTube channel, it's called the Hybrid Friends. So Flo, what is the Hybrid Friends for?
So the Hybrid Trends is basically the YouTube channel one of my colleagues, Bernhard, and I maintain, where we share our experiences from our projects. So we are part of Microsoft Engineering, and we are sharing our experiences, guides we use with our customers. I'm doing the FAQ series. We're talking to our product management and so on, and have some interviews also with partners about their solutions. And yeah, just try to share our daily experience with the community, and also sometimes doing funky projects. Like I bought an Asus ROG Ally and tried to run HCI and Windows Server on it, and just shared the why I did it and how I did it with the wider community. So that's more as a private project, but all around hybrid and as it calls hybrid friends, we always invite our friends from the community to discuss with us on the topics.
Perfect. So we invite you to follow these channels, so to keep up to date. But today we will talk about the Azure Stack HCI security book. But before we do this, I would wrong page. I would like to explain a little bit the infrastructure of Azure Stack HCI, Azure, and Azure Arc, because this is super important to understand. So on this slide, you can see Azure. You can see that the customer is accessing Azure through the control plane and has full access to everything Azure is offering. So you can secure, monitor, protect your environment. You have the opportunity to create a development segment, and so on and so on. You have your VMs, your containers, and everything like that in the past was only on the Azure regions available. So in the Microsoft Azure data centers. With Azure Arc, you have a small agent installed on your local physical servers. And now with the Azure Arc enabled infrastructure, you can bring everything that's not Azure inside of Azure. So you can see your non-Azure infrastructure in the Azure portal. So you can see the multi-cloud, you can see your data center, and you can see your edge. And you are able to manage your edge data center and multi-cloud through the control plane. And we have the Azure Arc enabled services. These services are coming from Azure to your outside of Azure environment. So the Azure Arc is a very, very powerful tool that's connecting everything outside of Azure with Azure. But there are a lot of questions in the market now. What does this mean for the protection of my on-premises infrastructure if there's a bridge between Azure and my on-premises infrastructure related to my security? So is there a threat, for example, that everyone who has access to my Azure portal has access to my on-premises infrastructure? And so on. And these are the things we will talk about today to explain to you how to use Azure services and Azure Stack HCI services to protect your Azure Stack HCI environment, because Azure Stack HCI is one of the Azure Arc enabled infrastructure. It can be in your data center, it can be in the edge. Because Azure Stack HCI is a very scalable solution. So you can start with a single node up to 16 node clusters. You can start with very low capacity servers up to high end. And Azure Stack HCI is super flexible and super secure. And this is what we will talk about today. So on the Azure Stack HCI Security book, when I scroll down a little bit, you can see the content. You can see it's 17, 18 pages long. And today we will focus a little bit on the introduction, because the introduction, and I make it bigger for you so it's easier to consume. Here we have a very nice content overview, and we will work through this content. So who wants to start? I have two experts with me, Manfred, Flo.
Yeah, then what I really enjoy seeing in this product that we see the different operation models. So like we have in Azure, we have our guys in the data center replacing disk, replacing motherboards, replacing servers, versus the operating system hypervisor operational team, plus then the service operators and customer data. And at least when I went through the doc and had a look on the services, it's something which is also reflected in this deck, in this white paper on how you can build such an operational model for your own data center. So having your, let's say, Dell engineer coming into your data center, replacing a disk without losing data because of a disk replacement, versus your operating system administrator, your network and infrastructure operational team, support teams, supporting your platform, your application, maybe your appliance service from Azure Arc, like Azure Kubernetes services. And then you have your developers, your customers, your employees managing, owning their own data without any other layer having access to different sides of operation. So that's one thing I really enjoyed while going through the document.
Yeah, and the document is very, very helpful to see on the one hand the complexity of security, because we see the different layers, and to have an absolute secure system, you have to cover all the layers, because if you, for example, miss to focus on your silicon security, then you could have the situation that an attack could use this silicon base or the workload or the operational base you already described, Flo. And this document helps us to understand which layers of security we have and which Microsoft technologies help us to bring the maximum security to each of the layers. And I think a great thing before we start with the details, everything is enabled by default in Azure Stack HCI. So if you are interested in the security handbook, we recommend you to walk through this document. But if you want to ensure that you have a secure system, it's enough to deploy Azure Stack HCI based on the deployment wizard, and then you will have all the security baselines enabled by default.
Maybe giving some background here from a Microsoft engineering perspective. Why is it enabled by default versus, let's say, Windows Server 25, where you have it as optional components? When you think of the current use of HCI, we're seeing a lot of it deployed at the edge. So not really much of a data center footprint, but lots of them at the edge. So it's coming with your partner. There's your partner deploying maybe the operating system already with HPE, Lenovo, directly doing that at the edge, cabling at the edge. So no administrator, no operator is at your location. So you want to deploy your operating system and have all these security components available by default, and not sending someone to secure it like you would need to do it basically with Windows Server in this case. You want to have, okay, the operating system is on, drivers are installed, updates are done. Now I want to deploy my operating system, and I want to have it secured by default without doing anything in addition when I'm operating at the edge. So that's something where those attempt is coming from, securing everything by default instead of making it optional.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation. So very important, especially for our European partners, I think, are the certifications that Azure Stack HCI and every service you are using at Azure has the certification following regional and worldwide security standards. I think that's super important, isn't it?
Yep. As we're using HCI also in the Azure space, so we need to have those security certificates, global certificates for all of our sites. Those learnings also went into HCI itself, and with that we were basically able to build the OS based on those certifications, and then you just can align the features and what you need for your specific certifications, if it's in healthcare, aerospace, security, military standards are also, I think, possible in most cases. So that's one thing you can then also reflect with the baselines later on, or above of that. Yeah, totally with you.
And when we talk about the hardware, so Trusted Platform Module 2.0 is something that's mandatory for Windows 11 for a long time. It's not mandatory for Windows Server and Azure Stack HCI, but it's recommended. So what benefits does TPM 2.0 bring to our customers, Manfred?
Now, in the latest version, it's mandatory also for Azure Stack HCI. This is what is new with 23H2. In the past, it was an optional feature. And we always had advantages to use a trusted platform module, because this is our module or chip that supports us in providing a secure store for credentials and information like this. And for sure, in Azure Stack HCI 2020 H2, we could use, in 2022 H2, we could use a trusted platform module, but it was optional. In 23 H2, It's mandatory. It's part of the validation. When we try to deploy an Azure Stack HCI cluster, it validates if we have a trusted platform module version 2.0 installed. And this is the foundation for security. Many customers are asking, why is a trusted platform module mandatory in Windows 11? Why couldn't it stay optional? Why it's now mandatory in Azure Stack HCI? And it increases the trust base for the log-on credentials, for the security credentials. And the important thing is to make it mandatory. Microsoft can be sure that every customer that is running an Azure Stack HCI 23H2 cluster has this enabled. And this the same situation we have in Windows 11. We can be sure that every customer has enabled this this very important security module and feature. Yeah. As you mentioned, in Windows Server is optional. If we are using Windows Server 2022 or the next version 2025 with a trusted platform module, we can also take the advantage, but it's optional. In Azure Stack HCI, it's mandatory.
So how about customers with an existing infrastructure? You're working very closely with the hardware vendors. So what is your experience? How many Azure Stack HCI clusters are in the market without TPM module?
Yeah, I don't have an official number about this, but my experience is that all my systems I have, and these are different versions of hardware. It's latest technology, but it's also technology I brought to my demo center with the first versions of Azure Stack HCI. And a trusted platform module was in every system available. Sometimes it had to be activated, and sometimes I had to buy the add-on module. So a trusted platform module is an add-on module you can integrate in the systems, and it depends on the vendor, but I had not any system in my environment where it was not possible to enable a trusted platform module. The new systems that will be certified for the Azure Stack HCI catalog for sure are tested based on this requirement, but systems that are already in the catalog that were sold for 2022 version of Azure Stack HCI or 20H2 or 21H2. These were systems that were not tested for the trusted platform module, but usually this is an add-on you can activate or it's already on the systems.
Yeah, I think mostly you have those platform, the TPM modules 2.0, and since the last 2 generation of servers with any vendor, there were others who were using those already, and I said we are also talking to the partner and say, hey, we need that module within the next 1 or 2 generations of our operating system. So can you already build it on top of your hardware? Either as optional as you had with some of your systems, or with some partners directly included.
And in this security book, you can find a lot of details about every single point in this overview. So for the secured core, Manfred, Flo, what are the benefits coming with CPU-based firmware protection, pre-boot DMA protection, or virtualized base security? Why is this so important for a secure environment?
A secured core is a label we already know from the client side. And let's say secured core is something like a label where we can ensure that the full stack is available in our system. And so the advantage for the customer is that he knows with an Azure Stack HCI 23H2 solution, he has the full secured core stack. This is also visualized, for example, in the Windows Admin Center, where we can see, oh, we have a green mark on each of the things, the CPU-based protection, the virtualization-based security. And these are all areas, as we mentioned when we started with these sessions, we have to care about. We have to care about the storing of credentials. It's the trusted platform module. We have to ensure that we have isolated areas for different workloads. This is the virtualization-based security. We have to ensure that not any interface is used to attack the system. This is the DMA protection and so on. And from the technical perspective, we can read in the details for each of these features in the security book. From the perspective, what do I have to care about as a customer? It's the secured core label we should have on the systems. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also we also as a Microsoft need to care about it, because if we port appliance services like Kubernetes, AVD, data services to HCI, those require the secure core feature out of Azure. Otherwise, we cannot port them due to security requirements of the application itself. So that's why we need to ensure having that on an HCI operating system too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to port those appliance services to the edge or to our data centers to other customers. And as I think you posted a comment, Carl said on LinkedIn, those TPM modules are already now included into the CPU, at least in the modern CPU, like the latest generation of Intel Xeons and then AMDs, so that you also avoid attacks direct from the silicon itself, because it's operating outside of the CPU.
Oh. Okay, so let's switch to workload security. Trusted launch for Azure Arc VM. So here we have Azure Arc. Are only Azure Arc VMs trusted during the launch, or any other VM running on Azure Stack HCI as well?
It's not only the VMs, it's also the operating system itself, because when you look on the Hyper-V architecture, which is still beneath HCI, the management OS is part of the VM workload itself, so it launches also in the trusted VM context, and also that's why we recommend Defender in that secured content. So in the first place, the Arc VMs, and I think Manfred has to add to that, but it's also the management OS itself launched as trusted VM, pseudo VM in that context.
Yeah, I think important to understand is what such a trusted launch VM is, because when you think about virtualization, except from the hypervisor, it can be Hyper-V or any other hypervisor, then we have the situation that a virtual machine consists of a configuration and one or more virtual hard disks. And for sure, I can take these files with me and I can use these files. So if they are not encrypted, if they are not secured, I have the situation that I can put these files to another Hyper-V system or another hypervisor and try to run attacks. And I can take as many time I need to attack the machine, because now it's in my environment. So I can steal the data and try to get access. And so we already talked about encryption of volumes and so on. And the trusted launch VM ensures that the virtual machine only runs on this specific piece of hardware. So I cannot put this virtual machine to any other hypervisor, because it's locked to my environment, to ensure that there cannot be any thefts of virtual machine configurations and virtual machines as a complete container. And for sure, there are other solutions in the market where we can secure virtual machines, like I described it. So for example, if we use Hyper-V in Windows Server, we can configure a secure virtual machine. But the important thing is, security is always an additional layer we also have to manage. And in Windows Server, we have to do it manually. All the features are available, but we have to do it manually. And when we want to live migrate a virtual machine to another host, we have to ensure that we bring this secure informations to this new host so that the virtual machine is allowed to operate there, or to be operated there. And in Azure Stack HCI, this is done automatically via the trusted launch VMs we configure in the Azure portal, where the ecosystem from Azure Stack HCI, managed by Azure, ensures that the virtual machine is accessible and startable on my systems, on all of them. I can use live migration, I have failover capabilities, but not outside my environment without any additional administrative tasks I have to do. I just select, is it a trusted launch VM or a normal VM when I create this virtual machine?
Okay, so there's a comment from Carl, and he believes that in integrated systems and premier systems, so the premier solution that has been launched last year, they are certified for the full stack that supports security, so secure core, lifecycle management, and everything like that. And of course, all these high-end certified solutions are perfect for your Azure Stack HCI environment. And if you have any questions about that, you are unsecure, then we recommend to contact directly the hardware vendors and ask them what options you have. And yes, they can offer everything you want and need. So
I would personally pick up that comment when we're talking about the software updates and how that impacts the secure the secured environment. And I'm also, just as a note on the hybrid trends, I will also talk to Samantha Doherty about the primary solutions and how they differentiate to the integrate and validate system. So that's maybe something interested for the audience too. That will one video for the future. But let's pick that comment from Kyle up later on with the software updates, because there's a very interesting change in regards to security when it comes to 23H2.
Good. So Microsoft Defender. What type of Defender is part of Azure Stack HCI, and what type of Defender comes from Azure? So what I'm asking is, if you have a disconnected environment, for any reason, it's disconnected for a moment, what Defender features are still available and what are only available if Azure is connected?
So the Defender is part of the operating system. It's in the Windows Client OS, in the Windows Server OS, in Azure Stack HCI, inside the virtual machines on Azure Stack HCI. So, and the Defender agent itself, it provides the full capabilities for securing the system. So the Defender completely works also when my Azure Stack HCI is disconnected. So I don't have limited security when I'm disconnected. What for sure is not available, the monitoring part we have from Azure, the configuration from Azure, because if I configure things in the Azure portal, if I want to see results from the monitoring, I have to have the connectivity between the agent and the portal itself. But the full security is also provided if we are disconnected. This is an important point about Defender, because we always talk about the integration into Azure and the management via Azure, but the part that secures the system is on the nodes themselves and inside the virtual machines.
And a very important part to pick up here, Manfred, what you said, it's integrated in the operating system. So it's not like with a third-party solution where you would need to install the agent, where you would need to set exclusions, especially for the hypervisor, that it enables the antivirus solution, defending solution to run. It's there. It's running as in kernel mode. It's running in without all those exclusions, which gives an additional level of security. Because what I would do as an attacker is, if I know there's a third party running on a hypervisor, I would attack the exceptions which are needed to be set that the antivirus solution would run. so would bypass with those exclusions the antivirus and security solution. So that's one thing I really like on Defender. It's directly integrated in the kernel. There's nothing I need to do from an exception base, which closes down the attack surface for my infrastructure environment, especially on HCI.
That's an important topic you're raising, that it's included in the operating system. So especially on the Windows client part, I know that a lot of customers and partners are using or recommending third-party protection software. So for Azure Stack HCI, do you think there's any third party needed any longer, or is Microsoft integrated security strong enough to offer the best possible protection against any kind of threats?
So from my learning throughout the last years, from status right now, I would say Defender and the integration is more than enough as you need. So there's no third party required in this case. There's also one important thing, thought process you as a partner, as a customer should have. Microsoft is using Defender itself on the Azure platform, on the Azure services. So every threat we encounter, every attack we encounter, we need to fix for ourselves, which means we need to put that on a midterm directly, or it will go into the product for Defender, for the SIEM integration, Sentinel, etc. itself. It will move into the customer product from our learnings we have with our own platform, which makes the whole innovation much faster. And there's another thing our security guys told me when I was talking to them. They said, "Did you know that Azure is the greatest honeypot on the globe? Because they always encounter attacks. There's someone who tries to find a vulnerability, and there are headhunter programs to find those, and we need to fix those. So we need to be fast to bring solutions into our own platform, and with that we can then bring it into the operating system, into the applications itself. And especially for security, client security, endpoint security, Defender is one of those very fast evolving and changing and be updated products. So that's why I think there's still room for third parties. There are still things we cannot cover, but it's most of the cases you're really settled with the Defender solution itself. As said, from my personal learning throughout the last years.
Yeah, and the big advantage of this Defender is because it's part of the operating system, it's part of the certifications. So I don't have another party where I have to look at the third-party antivirus. Do I have the same certifications, and do they guarantee the same level of trust and so on? Because when you look at the situation from last year, how many tools for managing and monitoring IT environments were hacked in the past. I also have to think about this risk. What happens if the provider of my security solution will be hacked, and I'm using this solution? And with Defender, it's part of the OS, it's part of the certification, it's part of the whole security stack we are talking about. So from my point of view, it's better and it's easier to guarantee that I have this level than if I use a third-party solution where I have another partner I have to talk to and ensure that I receive the same level of trust.
Yeah. And another good thing you mentioned, those partners focusing on one product. When Microsoft, and we need to admit, we had a few hacks throughout the last years. We have a full stack where if we have 10 attacks on a full stack of more than 700 products, it's still, from a percentage and from an attack surface, less than one partner has who's only focusing on one product, or on maybe 10 products where they get hacked once or twice. So the amount of care we need to take is tremendous to one specialized partner. And that's why, as you said, if you're getting an operating system which has this FIPS 130 certification, everything which is running as a feature, as a service is certified. So there's no additional care, and all those are, let's say, included. If we find a vulnerability, it's fixed by our overall security for also different other products. So if we have one learning, we would just check the other products for that vulnerability and need to fix it in the other products too.
Okay. So when we switch to operational security, ongoing operations, you can see Azure Arc, Windows Admin Center, and Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So what additional services are part of this Microsoft Defender for Cloud? Or is this just monitoring the Microsoft Defender?
So when you look on Microsoft Defender, everything which then encounters for Microsoft Defender for endpoint, you can also integrate into Sentinel. Also, there's third-party integration into other monitoring solutions, if you like. All comes with that integrations and all with that chain afterwards. So you can use then the full portfolio, most likely full portfolio, what we also offer with the other Defender and security solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only that specific product; it's really the whole suite which comes as part of the Microsoft security ecosystem.
Okay. And when I look to the cost of the security, so the Microsoft Defender is part of the operation system. So I think that's for free. Is there any add-ons that I can book as a kind of Azure service that generates cost?
Yeah, there are several add-ons that are available, but they are not required to have the security we are talking about. These are add-ons that enhance the manageability, that enhance the capabilities of reacting on things like this. Automation, yeah. So there are plans for this, but these are optional things. So it's not the situation that we say, okay, Defender is in the operating system, but to be able to use it, you have to add a subscription plan where you have costs. So this is optional. So this increases your experience, but not the capabilities of Defender on the nodes. I think this is important to understand, that the Defender and the security level of Defender is really for free. It's integrated in the operating system. And what you mentioned with the additional plans for the Defender for Cloud components, they are optional, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because very often people ask me about the cost of Azure Stack HCI and they want to know about hidden costs. So there's no hidden costs. You have opportunity to book some features that makes it more comfortable for you to use it, but you can use it without it. Okay, good to know.
So the operating system basically is the core cost you have, or that you can cover with the license costs. Everything on top, even if it's Kubernetes, if it's AVD, if it's additional security, additional features, is an add-on, is an specialized Azure plan, as you want to say, to that you can put on top if needed. But the operating system itself is these $10 per core per month, or covered by the Windows Server license with software assurance if you have, and then you're done, and you can have HCI.
Okay.
And I think regarding the question, sorry, I think regarding the question you mentioned, Sven, that many customers are asking if there are hidden costs in Azure Stack HCI. There are no hidden costs, but there are many features we can use additionally. And some of these features, there might be costs there.
Yeah.
Oh. And how about Azure Arc and Windows Admin Center? Why are they relevant for operational security?
So the Windows Admin Center, I was surprised to have it here. We can still use it, but Windows Admin Center has not the same relevance in Azure Stack HCI 23H2 than we had in the past. But regarding the security, for example, the Windows Admin Center has a screen where we see this secured core components and where we can check if they are all enabled, and we can see that they are all enabled. The focus is more on Azure Arc and via Azure Arc. So I mentioned this before, the nodes, when they are deployed with the Azure Stack HCI operating system, the first step after the OS installation is the Azure Arc enablement, and the whole rest, the deployment, the enablement of the security policies for Azure Stack HCI and so on, everything is done via Azure Arc. And I think this is important when we already have a look at the next part, this ongoing compliance, because there we see something like it's called drift protection. So drift protection means that all these security things we talked about are not only configured within the deployment, but we have also a technology that cares about that they don't drift away when we use the system and change some configurations. And this is also handled via Azure Arc. So this is the technology that allows us from the Azure portal to use technologies there to configure our Azure Stack HCI in our data center on the edge.
That's maybe for the Windows Server guys beneath us, it's comparable to desired state configuration that we have in Windows Server since, I think, was it 2012 R2, something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So that you have a configuration which is, let's say, done for your web servers, for your hypervisor host, and if someone changes something, the host will ask, is that my new configuration? No, it is. So it will roll back the whole configuration to be, again, part of the cluster, have the desired non-drifted configuration itself. On the Windows Admin Center part, to stay true to ourselves, to be honest here, there's still some parts not for security, but for the operating system itself, where you need Windows Admin Center. Let's say storage configurations. Sometimes you cannot do from Arc right now. There are a few configurations where you need to have the Admin Center or PowerShell to configure those. They can be reflected in Arc, but not every scenario is within the Arc configuration for Portal at the moment. So sometimes you still need the Admin Center until we ported it to Arc. And some of, at least my customers, still want to see the Windows Admin Center, at least having it in the data center to open the console without the need to go to Azure when they're at the service themselves, like the good old remote server administration tools. So that's why I think it's still on the security part, and we also enhanced that one with role-based access control to make it more Azure-like from a management and access experience.
Mhm.
That was also asked by the customers to especially have role-based access control in Admin Center itself.
Okay, let's switch to software updates. So we all know updating is super important because you can fix everything. But what benefits does Azure Stack HCI bring to the software update process?
So the major change in the software update process, and also, again, picking up the comment from Carl here, is it's no longer operating system or appliance updates from Microsoft itself. With 23H2, there was a major change to updating drivers and firmware from HCI nodes. Every validated, integrated, and premier system now offers so-called SPE packages, so specialized packages for certified drivers and firmware. And the only supported and fully recommended way to install operating system or infrastructure updates is now using Windows Update, because those updates are validated by Microsoft for the operating system, are validated by the partners, and are especially tested and designed for that specific HCI versions you're running. So there's no, or in the past we had often the issues that customers were taking the SUUs or even partners taking the SUUs to update the servers and choose the drivers for Windows Server. And that totally broke, for example, the network cards from HCI, because those, due to RDMA, required a certain version to be able to run with HCI. And that's a thing that will no longer happen with the SPE integration, because as soon as you hit update, you will get all the list of all the updates. There's currently capturing that one today in February 2024. There's still, let's say, with HPE generation 10, there's still the workaround that you need to have the SUU, because generation 11 driver packages are in those updates. Generation 10 is to come within the next 2 months. So that's one thing. But in the future, driver firmware updates should always be done and managed by Windows Updates, and no longer with manual update process and bypassing the Windows Update, with that to ensure full compatibility from the drivers to your hardware with HCI.
Mhm.
That's, at least for me. Manfred, you will most likely add something to that, but it's for me the major change also from a security purpose, because you no longer are able or should be able to have compromised drivers coming from some source into your operating system. With that, there's no bypassing from a security perspective due to the through the drivers itself.
Yeah, and it's a big advantage regarding the handling, because it's not only that a driver can be compromised, it's also the question which is the right one. And so here we always have a solution. It's now more a solution perspective. We have the OS on the hardware, and the driver and firmware package is optimized for this. Yeah.
But that makes it rather complex to, for example, run your own test environments, like myself on Intel NUCs or on non-validated hardware, because that sometimes personally brings the issues that you don't have the drivers available, and it's not easy to get them in. But it's, yes, that's some compromise we as techies, as enthusiasts need to take. But we are not running in a production environment. So I had a few complaints from a few people on my channels. They said, yeah, I cannot learn or use my test environments. I need to say, yeah, yes, because we are enthusiasts. We cannot afford these, like Manfred, these expensive test environments. But yeah, we can still bypass, and we are not running it into production. The focus is production environments. It's not us testing those stuff. So we need to compromise at this stage. And yeah, we're still able to do, but if we fail, and it's okay, because we're not running in production. We're just testing.
Okay, so let's switch to protecting the network, access control, and things like that. So what benefits does Azure Stack HCI bring to the network security?
Yeah, similar to what we talked in the previous steps, we have this technology described here. For example, transport layer security 1.3, the SMB 3.1.1, and so on. Also, for example, in our Windows Server operating system. But in Windows Server, the admin has to choose what to enable and how to enable and how to configure and find the compatibility. In Azure Stack HCI, the security is on the highest possible level, also for the network environment. So the transport layer security, TLS, is version 1.3 enabled by default. The credential protection is enabled by default, and so on. The encryption is enabled by default, so that we also have in the networking part a secure system. So it's not out of scope, because we could say, okay, we have the servers, we have the OS. But for sure, the data has to go from one server to the other. The workloads are using, for example, all the servers in a cluster when we use live migration, when we store our data. And so here we have also the protection on the network. And when we add the data protection, the BitLocker, it's also available in previous Azure Stack HCI versions and in Windows Server, but also the BitLocker drive encryption is enabled by default if we use the option in the deployment wizard to pre-create and pre-manage the volumes that are created in the Azure Stack HCI 23H2 deployment process.
And maybe the people now asking, why are you not enabling on Windows Server by default?
Mhm.
And that's maybe one thing we need to really be very clear here, because we can enable those features by default with Azure Stack HCI, because Azure Stack HCI is infrastructure focused. It's only managing its own communication between its own nodes with own certified virtual machines and so on. There's no compromise needed to run, for example, legacy applications like you could install on a Windows Server. Example, you're running a machinery, some of which produces some glass or some sausages or whatsoever, where you want to install the management for your machine, which is maybe an old Siemens or ABB based applications, which does not support all those security features. So with Windows Server, you need to be able to disable those or set it to a lower standard to support the applications. There is no option to install those applications to an HCI infrastructure. So we can really start to lock down those infrastructure components to a higher security standard, because as an HCI deployment, we do not need to take care or even consider running those legacy applications on our operating system itself, because it's either running in the VM or it's not running anywhere.
Okay. And data protection, BitLocker, you already talked about that, Manfred, while we talked about the trusted launch and so on. So we have several layers how to protect our infrastructure. On the one side, we protect the people who are able to manage our infrastructure, our virtual machine, who are able to create new VMs, to stop, start, cancel VMs. But doing that does not mean that these people are able to access the content inside of the VM, correct?
Yeah.
And the inside of the VM is protected by the access control, so through Entra and things like that.
Yeah, and as we had in the workload security area, we have this trusted launch VM, so we can ensure that the infrastructure administrator has not automatically access to the content of the virtual machine. And on the other hand, we have a role-based model where we can ensure that the, let's say, user of the virtual machine, so the workload administrator, has exact access to his machine or his machines and not to the infrastructure layer. This is a traditional role-based model we are using here, managed by the Azure Access Management. Yeah.
And it's not only with the Azure Access Management. So maybe in a production environment, Sven and I had a discussion last week with a customer where we said, okay, even when you're running Arc or even when you're running other components, yes, your support staff will maybe have access to shut down and create virtual machines, but afterwards they can, if you didn't enable it through a robust access control, they maybe can RDP in your Windows Server, but then there will be another prompt for credentials, and they need to just have those credentials to log on to the server and access the data. If they don't have those, as you already said, Manfred, with Trusted Launch, they can just try to grab the VHD and start it on their systems. It will not start because it's not on a trusted platform. And with that, they can even don't try to hack those passwords, and they need to have those both controls. And there's one really important security piece. What you should never do is giving your infrastructure administrator's account also access to a workload. It must be pain, to be honest. So no single sign-on from infrastructure to workload, in my opinion, because it should always be a different account. If you compromise one account and you can access everything with it, then you have, it's not due to the application, it's not due to the vendor. If you get compromised, it's due to your security strategy, and that's one thing we want to ensure with HCI, with the operating system, with Arc, that you have these different levels of roles you can have with an account, but you should never give an account all roles to access all levels.
Okay. And Carl is coming back to your comment that tech enthusiasts who want to run a test environment may run into some issues. And he wants to know if there's any guidance on your Hybrid Friends channel to run test environments in the future.
Not yet. I'm working on something, but I need to figure it out myself, as my own test environment with the Internax isn't working any longer with 23H2 due to the drivers. What I'm doing right now is using Nested, to be honest. Also the jump box from the jump board. We maybe can link that one later on in the video, but I'm using a lot of the jump starts right now for testing things, also with our product groups. Within the engineering, we have a few servers, which are mostly with my colleagues right now. And on my systems, I really tend, and I think of to try that, running Windows Server 2025 on my physical host and then going nested. That's one thing I currently try. I'm also running a test environment on my Asus ROG Ally, also nested, to avoid those driver issues. And then if you're an enthusiast, talk to your wife, maybe get 2 certified small hosts, and otherwise you can always bypass the drivers from the hardware, but it's some pain and needs some experience on that. But
I would
I'm
also
working on something, but I need to try it myself, to be honest.
I would also recommend the virtual machines because it works very well. And why should I invest time in testing a hardware I will never be able to bring to production at the customer side? So for getting experience and testing, the virtual machines are great. And for the real life scenarios, you have to use the certified systems, so validated nodes, integrated systems, or Premier solutions. And so starting with virtual machines is a great thing, and it works.
And to note a very important note here, because most of us were switching to hardware in the first place with 21H2 and 22H2, is things like software-defined networking weren't working in a nested environment. That thing, Manfred, correct me, I didn't test everything yet, but SDN is now also fixed so that you can run it nested within a virtualized environment. So that now should work, at least from what I tested and what I heard from my colleagues from the SDN team. So there's no longer really the need to have specialized hardware for that.
Yeah, most of the Azure Stack HCI features can be tested in nested, and for the rest, the best option is where you have the most effective time invest is to have a validated node minimum.
Yeah, and there's still the option, if so, as I said, most things you can test yourself, and if there is anything where you which you can test, and that's what I always recommend, is work with a partner. If you're not a if you have a project, if you want to test something, talk to a partner, talk to like Manfred if you already tested that, or maybe there's an interest, it would be an interesting blog post, so we're all eager to test it. Or if you have a larger project, involve, for example, Microsoft Fast Track, and we can then work with the product group to test that specific requirement. But as Manfred said, in most cases, things which aren't working nested are really specialized. And in this case, you should always try to engage either a partner, either an expert like Manfred, or the Microsoft engineering to go through that specific requirement with you and get the blessing more or less from one of those experts.
Perfect, guys. So we are at the end of the hour. So thanks a lot. So to summarize a little bit, Azure Stack HCI is your on-premises extension of Azure for your data center, for your edge. It brings a lot of security with it. So everything is included from the hardware to the operating system, to protecting the VMs, the containers, and of course the network. Everything is included, no hidden cost. Of your course, you can add Azure services to make it a little bit more comfortable. That's not mandatory, but you can do that. So if you are interested in Azure Stack HCI as your on-premises extension of Azure, then please contact me. I have a profile in LinkedIn, and I'm super happy to hear from you and to get your questions. So maybe we see each other this week, Thursday, on the Unpack the Deck session for Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI, together with Manfred. And for today, that's it. And we say thank you and goodbye. Goodbye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.